So our next topic is cooling and power infrastructure monitoring and optimization. We've got a panel of presenters here, but I'll turn it over to you, Lars Strong with Upsite Technologies. Lars?
Great, thank you very much, Amy. I want to thank you all for joining us, and we appreciate you taking your time today to listen in to what we have to share. We have a lot to show you, so let's get started by going through the agenda. And if we can go to the next slide. We're going to go to, we're going to tell you about Upsite, where we come from and what we do. Then I'll share the 4 R's of airflow management and how they relate to EchoSense. Then I'll hand the presentation over to Martin Doherty, who will tell you about the impressive team behind EchoSense and introduce you to the EchoSense platform. Paul Milburn will then demonstrate the software. As we've just experienced here with the previous presentation, there will be a chance for you to ask questions, and we'll go through those questions at the end. So please type those in as we're going through the presentation, and we'll get to as many of those questions as possible at the end. So Upsite Technologies was founded in 2001 by Ken Brill. Ken is widely known as the father of the data center industry. Among his claims to fame are developing the tiers of infrastructure standard, founding the Uptime Institute, and developing the first raised floor grommet, which many of you know as the cold lock. Upsite is continuing Ken's legacy by designing and manufacturing award-winning airflow management solutions. We're proud to have EchoSense as one of our offerings. We've recently added EchoSense to our offerings. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 R's of airflow management. We developed the 4 R's of airflow management methodology to help organizations focus their efforts and get the most out of airflow management improvements. Airflow needs to be managed in each of the 3 categories you see in the outer circle. Managing airflow through the horizontal plane of the raised floor, through the vertical plane across the intakes of IT equipment, and at the row level with island doors and baffles or roof above the cabinets. After any airflow management improvements are made, it's important to make adjustments at the room level by adjusting cooling unit set points to realize the capacity improvements and operating cost reductions. Very often, though, these changes and the potential benefits are not made. This leaves a lot of money and stranded capacity on the table. This is where EchoSense comes in. EchoSense is a thermal and power monitoring solution that utilizes machine learning to identify opportunities for improvement and provide recommendations to achieve optimum efficiency. So with that, I'd now like to hand the presentation over to Martin Doherty, the Development Manager of EchoSense.
Oh, many thanks, Lars. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for taking time out of their busy days to watch this and join us. I'm just literally going to spend sort of 90 seconds, 2 minutes, just framing the history of the business and the tool that we've developed over the last sort of decade. And then I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to take us really a whistle-stop kind of walkthrough of the technology and of the platform, a live instance of the platform. So very quickly, the history of the business. We are at our core a team of PhD level thermal experts who, over the last 20 odd years, we've been in and out of data centers, typically fixing thermal problems, designing HVAC systems, those sorts of services. We developed a number of tools to do these jobs over the last couple of decades, and in the last sort of 8-9 years within EchoSense, we've brought a lot of that know-how, a lot of those tools together into a very straightforward to install, a very simple plug and play machine learning platform. It does lots of things, and we're going to touch on as many of those things as we can, but really it's 5 key things that underpin our platform. This is in no particular order of importance. It's complete removal of thermal risk. It's the freeing up of M&E capacity. It's saving on cooling energy, and at the moment the 30% number, I think it's actually 29 point something, but we'll call it 30%. is based across an average of 400 instances of the platform across the likes of Digital Realty, Santander's, Bloomberg. So we've got quite a mix of customers, from the real large colo companies through to enterprises, through to a couple of smaller colo companies. Number 4 provides very early warnings for future failures. We do something quite unique. We measure true cooling duty, and what we're able to do with analytics is look for any kind of degradation in that cooling duty, and any slight degradation will typically inform of a future problem, so we can alert to that, and Paul will touch on this in a moment. Number 5 enables real simple, very quick and risk-free capacity planning and management with a drag and drop. We've gamified the technology, and as you'll see from the visuals, it's very much like a Minecraft type of thing. So we've gamified everything to make it simple, and it just gives you absolute control of your estate. I'm going to hand it over to Paul now. I'll maybe put a bit of narrative over the top with some of the things that Paul's going to run through, but he'll now take us all through the platform. Obviously, any questions, by all means, please type them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi. Thanks for inviting me to do this demonstration. So I'm the head of product at Echosense. So I'll just give you a quick demo, and I'll grab control of the screen now, so I can share. There we go. It's a screen. This one. So hopefully, technology all goes well. You should be able to see my screen there. Okay. Just start this. Okay, so let's see if everyone can see that screen. This is the starting view, basically the estate page view for Echosoft Critical. So the way that we highlight everything here, this is pretty much a fundamental view from like a knock perspective, or whether you've got alerts in any of your rooms, if there's any fault monitoring, if there's any power monitoring issues that you're getting on trends where you're seeing power changing outside of expected readings, and whether you've got kind of status issues here. So this is just a real quick overview, all the different rooms that you can be monitoring, whether you've got good connection to them. And we've shown that into a bit more information with leaderboard information as well, so you can actually see the temperatures that you've got across those rooms. And this is all a live view. All this data is coming back and updating every 5 minutes, essentially. So you can see temperatures in your room, critical temperatures for all the racks. Compliance is there as well, so you can monitor that to typically to the central ASHRAE compliance, but you could either put your own compliance levels in there and monitor different levels of room in there as well. There's PUE as well as a metric for looking at the power usage effectiveness, but also there's an additional one that we have introduced into the system called Echo Score, because we found that PUE was very much focused on how efficient a facility was working in terms of power, but not actually moving towards the, as I was talking about earlier, the 4 R's, not actually really understanding a room and how it's working in terms of its airflow and cooling optimization levels. So this is kind of a credit rating score, essentially, to walk you as a user towards a more optimized facility, and ultimately that works hand in hand with PUE. A high score here in airflow management and cooling is going to tracked alongside power is going to give you a very, very efficiently working data center, which is what we're in the business of achieving. If you click onto any of these rooms, it gives you a bit more of a status view, overview, thermal power and utilization. So this is again for sort of a very high level view, so that you can just quickly click in around the rooms that you've actually got and see how they're performing. It gives also a high level sort of traffic light status view as well in terms of capacity, which will make more sense when I go into the capacity module in a bit, but it essentially shows you whether you've got green is good, you've got capacity at UPS, also AC power level or DC power level, it can monitor as well, whether you've got capacity at cooling, whether there's space in the room, which you'll see from the 3D layout that we've got in there, just how easy it is to use the application to understand your space, and also site level as well, how the capacity actually all comes together from a site perspective. If I go into the room now, this is where you'll see where the application really sits. So it's all built, as Martin said, on a gaming platform, so using WebGL technologies. So this is all instantly loads and all goes onto a variety of different browsers. So nothing you have to plug in or preload. You get a very much of an overview of the thermal perspective. So here you can instantly see what the thermal situation is within that room. You've got all the racks coloured out. You've got all the aircon units as well, clearly showing their return and their supply temperatures. So you can get a very, very, very quick overview on how this is operating. It automatically loads to the point in time that you've come into here, but if you have a network operations team, as a lot of our clients have, they will have this just in a live mode, basically on a screen, a dedicated screen for this on site, so you can instantly see which part of the room or how the room is operating thermally, and that just updates continuously throughout the day. If I come out of that and return back to the main mode, here we go, we can have a look through some of the other visualizations. So it's very much set out with an emphasis on visuals rather than dashboard information. And we can change those visuals as well. So if you wanted to see temperature variance, for example, this is a very, very quick and easy way of seeing the difference that you're getting across the inlet side of any racks. So that's a very good way of understanding the airflow issues that you may have near a rack. So as it gets hotter, you see you get the variance a lot wider, then that can be a good indication that you've got airflow issues in the particular areas of the room that would need investigating. You could also monitor across the rack as well. So if you wanted to see the inlet and outlet, you could actually see that visualized here as well. The algorithms for our cooling advisor optimization are all based on the inlet temperatures and the air conditioning units, though. So that's just a kind of nice to have for any customers that want to also monitor their exhaust temperatures as well. We can monitor relative humidity, rack airflows, visualized there, so you can just see clearly which way equipment is facing. Another one that gets used quite a lot by network operations team is the compliance one. So this is a very simple filter in order to just show where racks are outside, either above or below their temperature thresholds. Like I said, those temperature thresholds can be set at a room level or can be set individually at rack level. So you can have easy custom compliance groups if you've got different SLAs for certain parts of the room, for certain parts of equipment, or for certain customers within the room that you're having to monitor and provide reports for. If I go on to I'll come back to these other filters later as we move on to power. But if we have a little look more now at the sort of filters that we get for the air conditioning units, I shall hide the racks just to make this a bit clearer. But for aircon units, you see you've got the supply and the return temperatures automatically showing. But here we've got a filter that shows just how much the cooling is actually being used within the room and on each of the aircon units. But one of the things that we've done, and Martin alluded to earlier, is if you hover over an aircon unit, you can actually see the cooling duty that aircon is using. So 47.5 kilowatts here of cooling. You get return and supply. And we have a piece of hardware that can be retrofit onto any device, whether it's a DX cooling, chilled water cooling, large or small units, or in-row units. And what that does is effectively monitors the cooling load and the airflow across those units, so you get a real-time airflow. It's essentially a smart meter for kilowatts cooling, essentially, so they can monitor how that's actually working. And with that information, we can use that to build into the analytics of understanding how the airflow is being distributed around the data center and which racks it is affecting. This particular view doesn't really show exactly how much cooling each of these air conditioning units has available, but you can easily switch that to the utilization view where you get this kind of milk jug approach. So you can just see how full each of the air conditioning units are. So you've got the 2 units over at the back here, both of which have the same capacity because they're the same height, but you can see one of them is cooling more than the other. But as we're well aware of within data center environments, air conditioning units tend to not be so stable, especially DX units. If you take an example, compressors come in and compressors come out. So it's how much time are those aircon units spending in each mode, because that really leads into understanding which aircon units, where optimizations will be best felt. So that's where we can use our EcoAir hardware that we put onto these units, and we could actually understand how much they're performing. So essentially you now can convert it into a histogram of performance over a 24-hour period. And you can see that this unit here, whilst we caught it in a mode where it wasn't cooling very much, its actual cooling trend over a period of time, it spends a lot of its time cooling pretty much near maximum capacity. Whereas the one here on the right, which we caught at a high point in its cycle, is actually a lot more spread out across the different cooling that it can provide. And you extend that out and you can see how that affects all the different air conditioning units. And this is pivotal in understanding which aircon units would benefit from having set point changes, fan speed changes, whether some could be in standby or or rotational sequencing, for example. This is the analytics that essentially gives you that sort of pattern that you need to be able to use to optimize your data center. If I turn this back to the temperature view, so it's a bit easier to see, and bring the racks back in, what we can also do with this view here, let's just spin it around a bit. We can use all the data that we're collecting from the rack temperatures and all the data that we're collecting from the air conditioning units. That combined together allows us to visualize cooling zones. So if I go back and see the last calculation it did for cooling zones, what this is doing is actually mapping the air conditioning unit and how they're working with the racks that they are affecting. And we can do that because we're looking at the trends over time. We're looking at all that data that we're collecting from the racks, and this is dynamic. So any changes that are being made as you're putting new racks in, as you're putting moving floor tiles around, if you're making changes to air conditioning units, this zone of influence essentially will update. So you can actually know which racks are going to be affected by any maintenance that you may be passing out an air conditioning unit, or if you need to have an air conditioning unit off, or if it's going to fail, you know exactly which racks are most likely to be affected. And all of that information then feeds into, I'll change the view, our functionality from a cooling advisor. So if I click into the cooling advisor mode, we've got in there, assuming that you've got sensors on all of the racks, which you absolutely need, and sensors on all of the air conditioning units, you can start an advisory piece. And this is going to be built up by our teams. We've got expert thermal PhD guys within our company, and they have put the intelligence from some of our really successful optimization programs that we've done across the world into this platform, so that when those optimization pieces that have been essentially carried out, this can be used to actually maintain optimization. So a typical story is an optimization would be carried out, make great savings, airflow is fantastic, and it's all set up. But then typically over time, just by not updating the optimization, that perfection kind of drifts away. Airflow management, airflow efficiency starts to go down again. Temperatures start to creep around. The range of temperatures from top and bottom starts to drift around. So this module has been designed specifically in order to keep the optimization tracking at the level that you want it, so you can actually maintain those efficiency gains and any of those savings that you've actually made. So this is intended essentially to be used weekly, if not daily, just to keep on top of thermal and airflow conditions within the room. And after it's had a bit of a think about the layout in here, it will suggest whether there are any floor tiles, for example, that might need changing. So you can replace floor tiles or open floor tiles or move them around. What it considers on the AHU set points and whether there's any set point adjustments that should be made. or whether any AHUs need to be or could be put into standby, or, as I said, or scheduling, you know, hot standby or cold standby options. So that's a quick route through some of the thermal capabilities and cooling capabilities that are within the software. There's also, say, power and capacity visualizations within the software. So if I quickly go into the site page, this is a view essentially showing you the power distribution through the software, through the site. So essentially you got the site mains incomers here, you can, UPSs. So you can click onto these units and collect readings of them as you expect. And if you click onto those readings, you get graphs appear of how the distribution is set out. But this is just a really nice, simple way that you can configure your site power on site and then define which systems are supplying which rooms. So if you've got different UPS systems, for example, dedicated UPS systems supplying certain rooms or certain floors and facilities, then that's how you can capacity manage between different rooms, and any changes that you make in a particular room will be reflected in all the other rooms because it's all held together at this site level, how you've constructed the site power distribution map essentially, and get a good view of how the power has been moving around in the site. And if I go back into the room view now, and then go into the capacity mode, we'll see a switch directly from the thermal type of view into the power view. So we can collect power data via Modbus, SNMP. So typically we can collect data for individual racks. So you'll see now everything, the racks are sharing now the power views that they have available. If I click onto this rack here, you can see we've got power attributed to the rack and then how much power has actually been allocated to that rack. So you can actually manage that, manage the allocations, manage the maximum power for the different types of rack, what the actual power type is to those racks and how that's actually linked back to the PDUs themselves. And just really simple high level, whether the rack has any space available or not. So you can mark these things as full, and then no one will be able to actually add any more equipment to those racks. Here you can see above the racks, the symbols essentially. If I click onto one with a plus sign, for example, this will then have tickets associated with it. So this is for a reserved change that's going to happen in the future. And if you click on those tickets, they're kind of linked to your ticketing systems, for example, that someone wants to make a half a kilowatt change, when its expected change date is. So you can actually see when changes are either overdue or when they're due. And you can clearly see which capacity changes are happening. And there's a number of different capacity changes that are accounted for in the software. So if we were going to make a new ticket, for example, here's a list of all the tickets, and we wanted to raise one, we can assign whether we're going to install a new rack, whether we're going to add equipment to an existing rack, remove from a rack, or decommission equipment from that particular rack. And then once we've added them, like I said, you can see which racks where you've actually got space, as it's clearly marked here. But then if you're wanting to add a new rack, for example, you can use the functionality, the cooling zones algorithm there will actually be able to be used to understand where the best position is to put it in the room. So you can drag this rack around to find an appropriate location. So we've got locations here that the software would happily accept that change to be made. But if I dragged it over to a different part of the room, we might find that it rejects in different areas, either through positions of equipment, not enough space in the aisles, or whether there's actually no cooling. So here, even though there's clearly space for a new rack to go in, it's going to reject the change there because it's a sign that there is not enough cooling to be sure that that change can be safely made. And at the bottom, you just got a very quick overview. The 4 key points of making capacity changes. You can see what your cooling capacity is within the site. So you know instantly that you've got 41 kilowatts available for cooling capacity. You've got a UPS AC back capacity in that room. You can mix AC and DC in the same room and understand how that goes back at system level. Like I said, if we make a change in this particular room, it will affect other rooms as well, so that you don't over allocate within rooms. It all goes back to the centralized system. And then you can see how much that's going to affect and how much capacity that you've got available at site level.
It's often, sorry, Paul, because of course it's often the capacity management and planning part of the platform that our customers, particularly telcos, see as the most valuable part of our offering. The fact that the platform pays for itself quite quickly with the cooling savings, so the return on investment is quite rapid. You then have the utility of the platform to just make life easier, take the risk out of that capacity planning, make it much more intuitive, much more straightforward, and also not lose any kind of tribal knowledge. If you lose any staff, you know, sometimes these things can be done on quite unwieldy spreadsheets. So what we've done is we've taken the complexity and the risk and the time. It's hard to quantify how much time can be saved doing it this way, but it's significant, and it's certainly the reason why a great number of our customers want to roll or are rolling out EchoSense across their entire estate, because it just takes that complexity and risk out of capacity. Paul's just about to show you the room builder. I mean, the room that we've just showed to you, in terms of setting up a room like that, might take maybe a day and a half physically to put the sensors on the racks, and also to put the sensors on the AHUs, to then build its digital twin. It really is very, very quick. There are no AutoCAD skills required. As Paul's showing there, it's all drag and drop. Everything's in the library. Something's not there, it will be there very quickly, but we've not had a situation yet where something's not available in the existing library to build out that room.
Yeah, so it's really, and that's it. The editor I was just showing here is designed to be really easy and quick to make changes, so that it's so you're not so reliant on your spreadsheets. It's really easy to make these changes and upload them into the software very, very quickly. And it's got the different views.
Oh, apologies, Paul. Sorry, we've had a couple of questions come in. One of the questions is this a cloud-only system, or I'm guessing that the question is there an on-prem version? The reality for us right now, we don't have any customers that aren't in AWS cloud with this. It's a very inexpensive solution when you look at the backdrop of similar things out there in the market, and the reason why we're able to deliver this is because it's a cloud-based solution. I think for the right kind of customer, potentially we could develop an on-prem version, but right now that's not really on our roadmap to do. Another question is, can this integrate with our building management system? Yes, most of our customers, there is some form of integration into their BAS, BMS system. We don't offer any kind of level of control here, so we're not controlling anything, but some customers want that, and we have done for many of them integration into their BMS. Another question, really good question actually. I mentioned true cooling duty earlier. How do we do this? It's actually, there's a series of, it's an array of sensors, and in short, it's a bit more kind of nuanced and a bit more complex than this, but it's delta T and fan curve and various analytics that are running over that. And it's not quite 100% accuracy, but it's not far off. And we're able to measure the cooling duty, and any degradation in that cooling duty is informing you of a potential future problem, which could be compressor, it could be fan. We've even seen a number of issues with firmware on cooling unit. One more question actually. I think this has already been answered. I think the question came in before Paul showed the virtual room building, but the way that the rooms get built is we would need a map of your floor, where are the doors, how big's the floor. We would then build it and give it you back, and then everything thereafter is just simple drag and drop. So you can change it around. If you've got containment, cold aisle containment, no problem. That's all there in the library. So everything's there, and it's very intuitive and very straightforward.
Okay.
Have we got any other questions?
Wonderful. Any other questions that coming in for Martin and Paul and Lars? We'll give it a minute. Any final comments from the three of you for our audience?
Yeah, this is Lars Strong. I'd just like to add that this is just obviously a very quick high-level perspective of what's possible with this solution. And if anybody would like to see more, there's contact information on your screen now, and we're happy to have that conversation with you about how this applies to both the unique configurations of your room and the potential unique benefits that could deliver for you.
Yeah, thank you, Lars. As Lars says, we'd be more than happy if people wanted a more in-depth live walkthrough of the platform. We'd be delighted to offer that.
Wonderful. Well,
Thank you.
oh, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, thank you very much for letting us demo it. That's
Great.
awesome.
Well, thank you again to Lars, Paul, and Martin. And